Hi and welcome to Little Nutshells. I'm Sarah and today we're going to be talking about what to do if your newborn baby is not sleeping well at night. Now I've accelerated this topic because I received a message from a new mama with a 3-week-old baby who's refusing sleep between 8 p.m. and 3 a.m. and it's not a once-off thing. This is becoming the norm and it's on a going basis. And when I received that message, it took me right back to those early months. And I understand, I've been there, and thank you so much to this mama for inspiring this video because I just remembered what that was like. You're recovering from birth and then facing sleeplessness and not knowing what to do or what to try, and it can be very overwhelming. So grab yourself a coffee and let's jump in. There are 5 things we'll touch on today. Firstly, what should we expect from a newborn? And then things to consider: physical discomfort, responsiveness, the whole day matters, and how they go to sleep. Now, we didn't have the easiest time with sleep in our household. I really had to learn so much. We faced many challenges along the ways, many ups, many downs, easy phases, crazy phases, and I learned a great deal and really went to so many sources. This book. I had one-on-one sleep coaching from this amazing company. I went all over social media following great accounts like this one. There is just so many great resources out there, as well as many experienced mothers and at times our pediatrician. So I'm hoping that I can bring together today some of those learnings and all the key basics that you need to know if your baby is refusing sleep through the night. And many of these tips actually apply to the first 18 months, not just newborn. Okay, so what should we expect from a newborn aged 1 to 8 weeks old? Well, this can be a really sleepy phase for a lot of people, but for other families it's highly irregular with sleep coming and going. They're just transitioning from womb to world, and there's really so much for them to adapt to during this time. A newborn won't typically follow a strict schedule or routine, but there is a typical flow to the day that can be really useful to know. So long as there's no medical reasons preventing sleep, a typical 24 hours might look something like this, with naps, wake windows, and feeds. And you might also expect sleep disruptions and feeding disruptions during these weeks as well. But if your baby is refusing sleep at night and it's not a once-off and it's just becoming a thing and driving you to exhaustion, there are some things you can consider. So first, let's look at physical discomfort. Is your baby uncomfortable? There are many things that you can look at, and we're going to go through each one of these quickly. And I know it seems like a lot, but sometimes a small adjustment can make a really big difference. So let's start with the big one. A really big culprit preventing sleep at night can be wind and gas in the baby's belly. Gas builds up through the day, through all the feeds, and it really can cause a lot of discomfort for your baby. If you're finding through the day they're bringing their legs up to their chest, squirming around uncomfortably, kind of burping and positing a little or crying out in pain a little bit at the witching hour, which typically is anywhere 5 p.m. onwards, then you might find actually gas is the reason why. The critical thing to do here is burping. Burping all through the day at every single feed. And it is a game changer. And burping needs to be done really regularly. And I'm talking every 3 to 5 minutes during a feed. It really makes a huge difference. And I know it seems like a lot, but over time, baby does get used to it. And you do need to really keep going until you get that burp. Even if it takes you 5-7 minutes and the baby's crying and frustrated and just wants to keep feeding, keep going till you get that burp if you can, so that baby has less wind in their tummy and can sleep more easily at night. However, if your baby is spitting up a lot or doing big vomits, you might find they actually have a condition called reflux. Reflux is very common in young babies, and it's a condition where the esophagus is not fully developed and stomach contents are coming up and out. It can be quite uncomfortable for the baby and prevent them from sleeping at night. So if you're finding your baby is vomiting a lot or crying out for long durations in what sounds like pain, one of the best things you can do is head to your pediatrician or doctor and seek their advice. For severe reflux, there is medication that can be prescribed that can help soothe this condition. Next consideration is ensuring baby's not hungry. We need to make sure they're getting enough milk throughout the day and at bedtime to be able to sleep. You might find at certain stages like week 3 and week 6, your baby starts feeding a lot more and cluster feeding at nighttime before bed. It might be a sign also that your milk is running low later in the evening if your baby is just unsatisfied. There's a great book, Save Our Sleep, that has a lot more on this, including expressing routines and things like that to help with this. And another tip, if you're wanting your baby to have longer stretches at night with their sleep, you can also try giving them a bottle at bedtime or at the dream feed around 10:30 of expressed milk from the mid-morning. Mid-morning, a mother's breast milk is the highest in the fatty content and therefore more filling. Now, a few considerations on what your baby is wearing. Giving them a clean diaper before they go to bed. And if you see any signs of redness or nappy rash, you can also apply a nappy balm or cream. I highly recommend this one, Bepanthen Baby, and this stuff is just amazing. Next consideration is clothing. Simple is better. Avoid clothing with any extra bits and pieces that could irritate your child during their sleep. No frills, bows, zips and buttons down the back, no pant and jumper combinations. Keep it 100% cotton and climate appropriate. And honestly, the best thing you can do is just go for the 100% cotton onesies or grow suits. Those things are just fantastic. They really are simple, very comfortable, as well as being super convenient for diaper changes at night. Another thing to try for your newborn is a swaddle. Research has shown that babies sleep better in a swaddle because it reminds them of a womb-like environment, as well as holding their arms nice and tight so they aren't jerking around at night and waking themselves up, which is a very, very natural and normal physical process for a newborn. But the swaddle helps keep them nice and tight, so it helps them stay asleep. Of course, it's up to you, whatever works for you. If you want to go straight to a sleep suit, you can give that a try also. For me personally, we started out with the swaddle and it worked beautifully to help our children stay asleep. However, by around week 6, we transitioned to the sleep suit just because, to be honest, I really suck at swaddles. I just couldn't nail it. I just couldn't get it perfect. And I knew that for my own sanity, I just had to get my babies used to the sleep suit so that it was easier for me to manage. Another really important consideration is ensuring your baby is not too hot and not too cold. If they're too hot, they'll be sweaty inside. If they're too cold, they'll be cold to the touch. And especially with overheating, it's really important to avoid this because it's a known contributor to SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. A rule of thumb I was taught is to consider in the climate you're in, your baby would probably want a similar kind of thickness in terms of pajama and sleep suit to what you would have in your own bedroom, plus 1 layer. And lastly, another thing to consider is your sleep environment. But if your baby is refusing sleep just at nighttime, then it's probably not the sleep environment. However, these are some things to consider with regards to your sleep environment, and I have a little nutshell coming soon which is going to deep dive into this, and I'll link it below. Let's move on now to responsiveness. The key here is understanding your child. Every child is unique and every child is a little different. But generally when it comes to sleep, there are 2 broad categories. Those that are easy sleepers and those that aren't. And I'll tell you what, I've had both. And I think the best thing you can do regardless of which child you have is just responsiveness. Learning your child's needs. Learning to predict what your child actually wants almost before they want it. Or giving it to them as soon as they ask for it. And the trick here is learning to decipher their little sounds, their body language, their noises, their cries, and their shouts. The second time round, I actually changed my mindset and my language around this, and I stopped ever saying the baby's crying. I just started saying the baby's shouting, the baby's talking. And my whole purpose behind this intention was for me to think, what is my baby telling me? What are they wanting? What are they needing? And it does take some time to get the hang of this. It is not easy, and it is kind of an experience thing. You will just learn over time, but it's really worth putting some effort into this to understand what it is that your baby is saying. And then by the end of the day, hopefully everything is just going smoother for you and they can go to bed a little more smoothly. Thirdly, the whole day matters. It took me so long to realize the critical importance of this. And after a while, I figured that the evening actually really starts at the start of the day around 7:30 in the morning. And everything that happens between then to the evening can actually impact the night's sleep. So what can we do about that? I think there's a few things to try. Firstly, start the day at the same time every day if you can, and make it around 7:30 as an ideal. But I would highly recommend not leaving it till 9:30. It might feel good for you in that moment to get a bit of extra sleep, but if you or someone within the household can start the day with the baby around 7:30, it will really help later on, and I'll show you why soon. Next, we have to teach the baby about the difference between day and night. Up till now, they've been in a womb environment, so now's the time to help them learn what that rhythm is through the day and the night. And there's a few things you can help to do this. For example, don't let them nap longer than 3 hours during the day. Do wake them up after 3 hours, and start the day with some sunshine. Go out into the light, or if it's raining, just go over to the window. Sunshine really helps regulate the baby's sleep patterns and helps with melatonin production and the circadian rhythm. Also looking for the right amount of wake windows through the day. 1 to 2 hours is good for a young baby, maximum 2 hours so that they don't get overtired, because if they get overtired, it will stimulate the production of adrenaline and cortisol and make it very hard to settle them to sleep. Meanwhile, if they're undertired and they're sleeping all through the day, they might think it's like party time by the time you get to 8 p.m. and refuse sleep at night. Also, when it comes to bedtime, keep a consistent bedtime routine. This becomes much more important after around 2 months of age, but you can start it at the newborn stage also, where you have a consistent routine, something that might look like a bath, coming into the bedroom or nursery, having some quiet time, maybe a story or a song, then a feed and a cuddle, and then bedtime. And by doing this the same every single day, it signals to the baby that it's time to go to bed. Also, keep your bedroom environment very dark. Again, took me way too long to figure this out. Cringe. Oh my God, I did just the wrong things for quite a while. But having a really dark bedroom environment. So what that means is that at nap time, it's closing up the room, closing up the curtains. If you can see your hand, then it's too bright. It really needs to be dark. And what that means at night is not switching on the main light to change the diaper, or any light for that matter, except a very low night light so that you can see, but it's not a bright light waking up the baby fully. And one of the best ways to remedy much of this is to have a daily pattern for yourself and the baby. Now, as mentioned earlier, newborns will not follow a strict schedule, but that doesn't mean you can't have kind of a rhythm and a flow and a pattern. There are many sleep routines out there. In the end, I kind of created my own by combining a lot of these things. The reason why I created my own is for me, in my sleep deprived haze, I just found it all a little confusing, and I really needed very clear daily rhythm based on when the baby woke up. Because it's a little mathematical, comes down to a science with this whole 1 hour, 3 hour, 2 hour, blah. So I was like, okay, what do I do if the baby wakes at 6:30, 7, 7:30 or 8? What should that day look like? And it's something like this. Shows the estimated time for naps, when to wake them up, duration of wake windows, how long to keep them napping, how long to keep them awake. I often found the first nap was the easiest because they were really snoozy in the morning, but by midday the nap should be the longest in the day. Research shows it is the deepest and most refreshing nap, so typically 2 to 3 hours. The third nap is the shortest of the day, not more than 1 hour. And I learned from one of the books that oversleeping in this last nap, even for a newborn, is one of the reasons babies don't sleep well at 7 p.m. If your baby's going to bed at 7:30, mama, that means you go to bed too. You eat dinner quickly and you just go straight to bed. And this rhythm helped me so much. It just gave me an anchor for the day, something to work towards. Now for sure, there are days this entire thing gets thrown out the window. There are days my baby would cat nap 5 to 6 times through the day. There are just days that don't work out, and that's all right because tomorrow's a new day. One last thing on this, it really is hard work. Coming off the back of birth and just settling in as a young family, it is a lot to take on, and I would just encourage that this is the time to get extra help if you can. If you have family nearby, it's a great time to get them in and have an extra pair of hands, whether that's cooking or cleaning or just helping out around the house, or if you have the resources to outsource to a third party if you can. This phase, the newborn phase, is the time to do it because it does get a little bit easier later on. And lastly, how they go to sleep is really important. So there are 2 schools of thought. There are many sleep books and the baby sleep industry in general that highly encourages self-soothing and discourages sleep associations such as feeding or rocking to sleep. This means that the baby goes into the crib drowsy but awake and puts themselves to sleep. The benefit of this approach is it's a life skill and a game changer if your baby can self-settle by themselves. The downside to this approach is sometimes it results in a little bit of controlled crying. And also, not every baby will accept this method from the start. Other books and philosophies encourage a slightly gentler approach, which supports soothing your baby to sleep, and that might look like feeding or rocking or patting or shushing or being with them as they're dropping off. The benefit of this approach is babies find a mother's milk and heartbeat and smell incredibly calming and is very helpful for them as they fall asleep. And the downside of this approach is that they might just get too reliant on it, and around 2 months of age onwards it can start to cause frequent wakings through the night as they're going through their sleep rhythms and not able to resettle to sleep and looking for mama to help them get back to sleep. So there's pros and cons to both of these approaches. Ultimately though, do what works for you. Happy baby, happy mummy, and I think that's the most important thing. One last tip is just to check in with yourself and see how you're going. The way I looked at things was, if it's not a problem for you, it's not a problem. But if you find you're getting very sleep deprived and long stretches of lack of sleep through the night is starting to just drive you a little insane and suck the joy out of your life, I would highly encourage at that point to seek support from an expert. There are some amazing sleep consultants out there who can really come in and help you understand your unique environment and your baby and what's happening in your world, and then help you resolve some of the issues that might be arising and preventing your baby from sleep. I received one-on-one consulting from the Baby Sleep School. They're not sponsors of this video. They really helped us a lot, especially later on down the track when I did proper sleep training. On reflection, kind of wish I'd reached out earlier when we were having some of the struggles. So I just highly encourage you not to delay if you're just finding it's too much and you're not coping too well, to seek the help. So that's it for today. It was a lot. Thank you for bearing with me. I really hope there is something in here that is useful and helpful for you. And I wish you all the very best on your sleep journey with your little one. There's a lot more to come in Little Nutshells in the sleep category, so please do subscribe and put a comment below with anything you'd like to hear about in Little Nutshells. Have a great day.